The dead period is over and transfer portal visits can start churning again. The Hurricanes have just added a blue chipper to that visitors list. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy New Year. I hope everyone's already crushing it in 2025. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's talk on this episode about what Miami's quarterback options could start to look like. And obviously that includes what you have within the room, but I have a feeling Miami is going to try and bring someone in through the transfer portal. Are there any new options that could be emerging there? We'll talk about candidates for the defensive coordinator job because there are at least two candidates that there are reports confirming Miami's interest in, and countless others that we expect Miami could have interest in, and it's a lot of fun to talk about this stuff. But let's talk about the transfer portal. So we're getting out of the dead period now. Visits are starting up again today, and the Hurricanes are going to have at least 4 visitors on campus today. Now, 2 of those were just reported late last night, I guess early this morning. I think it was about 1 a.m. today, Thursday, that Pete Thamel of ESPN reported some huge official visit transfer portal news for the Miami Hurricanes. Miami will be hosting, starting today, USC transfers, the Branch brothers, Zachariah Branch and Zion Branch. Zachariah is a stud slot receiver, former 5-star recruit, and his brother Zion Branch is a very capable safety. We'll talk about how injuries have affected his career to this point. Not only are they both going to visit Miami, they're visiting starting today. Now, there are connections to certain players who are on the Miami roster right now. Sometimes your players are your best recruiters. Miami's going to need some assists from the Bishop Gorman connection. Now, both of these guys would be great gets. And a lot of times when you have brothers who play on the same team, you end up, bringing in both as a package deal. I think that they would very much like to play together as they did at USC and as they did in high school, probably throughout their entire lives. And I'm sure whichever team ends up landing one is probably going to end up landing both. That's probably the way it's going to go for the Branch brothers. But Zachariah Branch, he is the headline maker here. This past season at USC, caught 47 passes. He had the most targets on their wide receiver core, caught 47 balls for 503 yards and a touchdown this year. According to Gabby Urruti at Inside the U, he lined up in the slot for 78% of his snaps. So if you're able to land Zachariah Branch, he would be the instant Xavier Restrepo replacement. And this is a guy who can do dynamic things. He's one of the top players in the transfer portal. If you go by any of the transfer portal rankings. So Zachariah, he's also, in addition to being a very talented slot receiver, he's also an explosive kickoff and punt returner. He especially starred in that role 2 seasons ago as a freshman in 2023, where he averaged more than 20 yards on his kickoff returns, which, or on his punt returns, actually averaged over 20 yards. And considering how stagnant our return game has been of late, you could use a guy like that. He took his first kickoff to the house as a freshman, return one for a touchdown. So he could add you a major explosive element in the kickoff and or punt returning areas as well. Zachariah Branch, slot receiver build. He's 5'10", 175 pounds. He is considered to be the 4th overall rated player in the transfer portal. So he's a blue chipper, and he's considered the number 2 receiver in the portal. I mentioned he's a former 5-star recruit. Now, trying to really make some headway with a guy like Zachariah Branch, it's especially important given that Miami has officially missed out on a player that you guys know that I really, really like and really wanted to see in orange and green, and that was Kevin Casey Concepcion. Concepcion has officially committed to Texas A&M. That's a development that happened since our last episode. I spoiled myself a little bit on January 1st, and I took New Year's Day off. So I'm a little rusty. We don't take a lot of days off here on these Locked On Canes streets. So I am back today. But Miami, in missing out on KC Concepcion, it makes sense that the Hurricanes would really ramp up their focus for Zachariah Branch. Now, of course, I mentioned his brother Zion is also on the table. And Zion Branch is someone who could absolutely help the Miami Hurricanes. This is a safety, capable safety experience. Miami is looking for guys like this because not only do we just need proven depth and experience in that defensive backfield, but you are, replacing a number of players who are not going to be on the team next year. You had a couple of other safeties enter the transfer portal. Miami, since our last episode, has lost Jaden Harris to the transfer portal. I know Jaden had a really, really tough season here at Miami. And we've also lost Isaiah Thomas to the transfer portal, who hadn't played yet. Isaiah was a true freshman this year, but he was coming off a serious injury in his final year of high school. So, it's unfortunate, and Isaiah's going to have a chance, I guess, to prove himself somewhere else. And then Jaden Harris, who, had a rough year in orange and green as a starting safety this year, is going to have an opportunity to kickstart his career someplace else. But we definitely need proven commodities at safety. Zion Branch has really good size, 6'2", 210 pounds. He has endured injuries for the past couple of years. So, if he can get healthy and stay healthy, he's looking for a breakout type of season. But he's, let me look at his grades. According to Pro Football Focus, had a 69.2 grade in 217 reps in 2024. Zion Branch had a 78.1 tackling grade and a 68.0 run defense grade. According to Kane Sport, he was noted for allowing 10 catches and 16 targets when in coverage for 117 yards with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. He is a former 4-star recruit. Now, I mentioned Zachariah Branch, Zion Branch. They come from the other side of the country, but there are Miami connections for them because they played their high school ball at Las Vegas powerhouse high school football program, Bishop Gorman. And Miami's trying to build that Bishop Gorman pipeline. You've got Elijah Lofton out of Bishop Gorman, who we all expect he was very good this year as a true freshman, but we think he's going to have a breakout year with an increased workout role, an increased workload, I should say, next year as a sophomore. So Elijah Lofton played with these guys at Gorman. S.J. Alofai-Tuli, very highly rated interior offensive lineman who just signed with Miami, coming in as a true freshman. He's from Bishop Gorman. So the Branch brothers will have, I'm not sure if they actually cross paths with Alofai-Tuli at Gorman. Maybe there's a 1 year, might have been a 1 year overlap with Zachariah, but you've got that Bishop Gorman connection. So Miami can use players from their high school to help recruit them. As far as what it would take to land the Branch duo, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. You obviously have to nail the visit. And we know Miami's a nice place to visit. The campus is beautiful. You get a meal at Prime 112. You get to stay at a nice hotel. Miami always does a really good job in Mario Cristobal and his staff are always really prepared to let prospective players know, here's our plan for you, whether that's for transfer. Sometimes it's a 1 year plan, but anywhere from a 1 year to a 4 year plan. Here's how we want to use you. Miami's always really good and really prepared for that stuff. That's one of Mario Cristobal's fortes. Obviously, for players like this, NIL is going to be a major component. You expect Miami to be competitive there. But I guess my big question is, does Miami have plans to sell these players on what their quarterback situation is going to be like and what the defensive coordinator situation is going to be? Because you're talking about, one of the most highly touted receivers in the transfer portal. He's going to want to know who's going to be throwing me the football next year. Maybe Miami already has an idea of a certain transfer quarterback they might land, or, maybe Miami can convince him the answer is already going to be in that quarterback room. And of course, you also, for Zion Branch, who plays safety, probably like to know who's going to be coordinating my defense next year, who, is my defensive backs coach going to be? Because remember, Lance Guidry, who was fired earlier this week, not only the defensive coordinator, but he was essentially the safeties coach. And, we don't know for sure if Chevis Jackson, who's the DB's coach, really the cornerbacks coach, we don't know for sure if he's going to be back next year. That was a Lance Guidry hire. So will Miami have convincing plans for the two of these players, Zachariah Branch and Zion Branch, on what their quarterback situation is going to look like and what their defensive coordinator situation is going to look like? Because I'm not naive to the idea that Miami is probably known for at least a few weeks that they were going to move on from Guidry. So I'm sure they have a plan on how they're going to replace him and who they're going to replace him with. And hopefully the same thing can be said for quarterback, that Miami can really, and, they were able to land CJ Daniels already, highly touted receiver out of LSU. Hopefully Miami is able to share a convincing plan for the offense and on the quarterback position. Now, for the Branch brothers, there's going to be a lot of competition for these guys. They've already visited Georgia and they've visited Arizona State. And I believe they might also make visits to Texas and Tennessee. So you got to hope, Miami moves pretty swiftly so they don't complete all of their visits. But this would be at least the third visit that they've had so far. And it's a huge opportunity for the Hurricanes. Now, Zion Branch, Zachariah Branch are not the only players that are on campus visiting today. We'll talk about a couple of others, important offensive players that the Hurricanes have already been predicted to land. But can they close the deal? So you guys want to keep it locked right here. We got more transfer portal updates. We've got updates on the defensive coordinator situation. That job has been open for the past couple of days. Who might be the starting quarterback for Miami next year? Could it be someone who was or is involved in the college football playoff? You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. 2025, and we are live. Smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Canes on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. We continue the conversation next right here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Keep it locked. Oh, we've been having a blast all season long on FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action. We got another week of that on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a dub. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Not only can you bet on who's going to win the game, FanDuel also has props for stuff like which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Thank you so much for making this I was going to say New Year's Day episode, but it's the second, isn't it? Our first episode of the new year. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin does an awesome job. Now, he also covers Oregon, so I'm sure he's not too happy about what happened yesterday. But Spencer McLaughlin on Locked On College Football does a great job talking CFP, talking transfer portal. It was kind of fun, watching Oregon getting their teeth kicked in, because the Oregon fans are so petty about Mario Cristobal. It's nice to see them lose a big game. And I can only imagine, like Phil Knight, CEO or founder of Nike, who's the biggest Oregon booster, that dude already essentially writes blank checks to the Oregon football program. Whatever he was already paying, he's now going to double it to try to win something over there. Now, on the flip side of that, I don't have much love for Ohio State, as you guys know. And I got to tell you, watching that OSU victory, oh, man, how badly I wish in an alternate timeline Miami had landed Jeremiah Smith. That dude is Andre Johnson reincarnated. Like, there's nothing you could do. You're talking about an 18-year-old who's unguardable. Jeremiah Smith. I mean, I know people still speculate, hey, maybe he could hit the transfer portal. I don't know if that would happen. Somebody was asking me a question on our Locked On Canes Insiders chat about it, how we could have let a guy like Jeremiah go. I mean, Miami tried. Believe me, Miami tried to land Jeremiah Smith. And had he played at Miami this year, can you imagine he and Cam Ward together? Like Cam Ward threw for over 4,000 yards without JJ. Had JJ suited up for Miami this year, Cam Ward would have thrown for 5,000 yards. Miami probably would win a national championship. It doesn't matter how many points your defense gives up if you had Jeremiah Smith and Cam Ward in the same offense. But listen, I mean, Obviously, we need to get to a point where we're never losing guys like Jeremiah Smith and letting them leave the area. And there's so many great players in South Florida. It's impossible to keep everybody because, the secret's been out for a while that, national programs have to recruit South Florida. But obviously you can't land them all, but that's one that I really wish I had landed. No question about it. So Miami also is hosting for visits this week, transfer portal visits. I mentioned Zachariah Branch and Zion Branch are both visiting. Miami also has TCU center James Brockermeyer visiting, who could end up being the Zach Carpenter replacement. He's got 1 year of eligibility left. And the thing about Brockermeyer is a very productive player. We'll talk about, the numbers that he put up as a center at TCU this year. But, the timeline could work out really well where if you're able to land Brockermeyer, and Miami has multiple crystal ball predictions to land him, he can help you kind of ease in the SJ Alofi Tulane era. Because I think SJ, who's Bishop Gorman, guys, since we've been talking about that high school, he's probably the next great center of the future for Miami. So if, while SJ gets a little seasoning as a true freshman, plays behind Brockermeyer, then, in 2026, SJ could be ready to take over. I think that plan could work out. And Brockermeyer, Miami's had success with transfer centers the last couple of years. Matt Lee was great here. Zach Carpenter was great here. Brockermeyer, 6'3", 295 pounds. He started all 12 games for TCU this year, an 80.2 pass blocking grade, which is really good. He allowed only 1 sack this season, which is excellent. He allowed 8 quarterback pressures. He did not allow a pressure or a sack in 8 of the 12 games that he played this fall. So that's what Miami's looking at with TCU center James Brockermeyer. Miami also has been getting some favorable predictions for Tulane tight end Alex Bauman, who's visiting today. Again, we've got at the very least, there could be other visitors we don't even know about yet, but at the very least, Miami is hosting TCU center James Brockermeyer, Tulane tight end Alex Bauman, and USC receiver and safety, the Branch brothers, Zachariah Branch and Zion Branch. So, and Tulane tight end Alex Bauman this past season with Tulane, 20 receptions for 212 yards, 7 touchdown receptions. He's very good in the red zone. He's also an excellent blocker. So he would be a good replacement for Cam McCormick and could do some things in the passing game as well. And Miami could really use a tight end, quite frankly. We all love Elijah Lofton, and, we love Brock Schott and Luka Gilbert coming in as true freshmen. And, I'm looking forward to seeing if Jackson Carver gets more opportunities because he hasn't played much. But Miami needs help at tight end because they've lost Elijah Arroyo, who officially declared for the NFL, Cam McCormick, who will not get a 10th year of eligibility, 9 years and done for him, and Riley Williams, who entered the transfer portal. So Miami's losing 3 tight ends from their roster last season. And if Alex Bauman picked the U, he could really be a help for us. All right, so let's talk about the quarterback situation. I don't have clarity on who the quarterback is going to be, but maybe there's a few extra options out there. Here's a potential option. I don't know if Miami was even interested in this guy or not, but I threw this name out there a couple days ago. But here's one that's off the table that Miami's not going to get, and that's Zevi Eckhouse from Washington State. He had entered the transfer portal. He decided to withdraw his name from the portal. So I guess the new coaching staff at Wazoo must have convinced Eckhouse that, hey, we really like you. We want you to be here. Now, Eckhouse doesn't have a lot of it. He has a lot of FCS experience. The only experience he had at Wazoo was he started in the Holiday Bowl against Syracuse. He played really well, so he got a lot of attention for that, but he has withdrawn his name from the transfer portal, so that's no longer an option. Still an option is Mark Gronowski of South Dakota State. And obviously for Miami fans, that wouldn't be like a flashy guy, but this young man looks like he has the ability. He's mobile in addition to being a really good passer. Let me pull up Gronowski's stats from this year. And he's getting NFL draft consideration. So if Gronowski were to decide to go pro, he could probably be a 6th or 7th round pick, but wisely, he's considering, let me play college ball for one more year at an FBS school, try to raise my draft stock, because coming out of South Dakota State, the draft buzz for him isn't through the roof, but he seems to be a guy that has NFL people noticed. So this season, He completed 61% of his passes for 2,721 yards through 23 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and he's got 380 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. So 33 total touchdowns, capable on running the football as well. There's a lot of folks, and again, like you're always, if you go the FCS route, like you're taking a risk because the jump in competition is so massive. But people seem to think that Mark Gronowski is a guy who is capable of making that jump for one final year of eligibility. And to be fair, this is a name that we throw around a lot. I haven't heard anything about him scheduling a visit or anything like that. So I don't know. I don't know how likely he is to become a Cane, but that's a name that's out there. So here's a name that's going to be very controversial. But I feel like Jalen Milroe has probably played his last game at Alabama because he didn't seem like someone after the game who plans to be back in Tuscaloosa last year. Jalen Milroe, if he were to become available, tremendous rushing ability, lightning fast. He throws a great deep ball. The intermediate and the short stuff, not so good, and a lot of inconsistencies, obviously, with Milroe. So Milroe, this is someone who, obviously has NFL ambitions. Of course, got a lot of talent playing around him at Bama, but very athletic, explosive, and capable. But you need to hone his mechanics a little bit. And so, and obviously that's a guy who would make a flash if you were to land him. And he's got not only Power 4 experience, but SEC experience. So I have to wonder if he's going to become available. I see some of you in the live chat say you would take him. Paul Mitchell says Milroe will be turning pro. Has that been announced? Because again, Milroe is a guy that would probably benefit from another year in college. I think that's probably a guess on his part that Milroe will be turning pro. Gino says I will take Kyron Drones over Milroe. Kyron Drones, maybe he'll become available. They play in Virginia Tech still has to play in their bowl game, but Drones has already come out and said he's staying at Virginia Tech. So unless he has a change of heart or a change of mind, seems like Drones is going to be staying there. So, Milroe could become an option. There's still a lot of chatter about Quinn Ewers from Texas, because here's the thing. And, got a big win. Yes, Arizona State nearly pulled off that comeback. I want to talk about their quarterback in a second, but Quinn Ewers is a name that's still going to get thrown out there. Now, he might decide to go pro, but if NFL scouts tell him he could benefit from one more year in college, I don't think Texas is going to let him come back, because Texas is not going to allow Arch Manning to sit on the bench for 3 years to start his college career. Like, they are ready in Austin to turn the page to the Arch Manning era officially. So Quinn Ewers could decide to go pro, could decide to hit the transfer portal for one more season. And, again, this is just me dreaming here for a second, because this player has not said anything about entering the portal, and he's probably happy where he is. His coach, Kenny Dillingham, just got a 5-year extension at Arizona State. But if you guys have been watching Sam Leavitt this year, and if you watched him the other day nearly pulling off that comeback against Texas, Sam Leavitt reminds me at least a little bit of Cam Ward. The way that dude moves around and manipulates the pocket and buys time and improvises, made some huge throws. You can never sack him the first or the second time. Again, this is a player who's probably perfectly happy where he is. But when I was watching that game, I was like, give me Leavitt I was having Cam Ward vibes watching Leavitt from Sam Leavitt from Arizona State. So that's a guy that I would love. But again, I don't have any reason to believe he's going to enter the transfer portal, but there's always the possibility. His team was just eliminated from the playoff. He's got a 5-day window to enter the transfer portal if he so chooses. People don't like me fantasizing live. Blaze says, stop it. Just saying, if he has any itch to go anywhere, that's a dude that I would love. Oh, he's saying stop it. I didn't say, Blaze, I didn't say he's Cam Ward. I'm saying he gives me some Cam Ward vibes is all I'm going to say about Sam Leavitt. Oh, man. All right, guys, we're going to talk defensive coordinator when we come back, because there's at least 2 candidates that media outlets have confirmed that there's some interest or mutual interest with Miami. You guys want to keep it locked right here, because, again, Miami's got Zachariah Branch and Zion Branch on campus. Zion, the safety, is probably going to want to know, who's my defensive coordinator going to be? What kind of a system am I going to be playing in? You guys want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, if you're attending the new 12-team college football playoff, you still have chances to go to big games. It's an incredible experience that's going to bring fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of past playoff games. I can't wait to make new memories with the updated format and the extra teams that are involved. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Guys, I've used Game Time a lot recently. Florida Panthers tickets, Miami Heat tickets, concert tickets for this summer coming up. Guys, browsing through the details was a breeze. I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal in particular stood out as the best value for the event. I love that I could see the seat views before buying and that the app shows you the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure for your next listen, you check out Locked On ACC. I co-host that show with Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. We take you around the conference, all the big storylines, big games. I know Kenton Gibbs is relieved that the KC Concepcion, I wish he was a Hurricane. He's not. But I know Kenton's probably relieved that he left the ACC if he was going to go somewhere, that KC is going to sign with Texas A&M, because there were rumors that North Carolina was going to take a shot at KC Concepcion, but he never made that visit to Belichick. So, all right, so a couple of the names in terms of Miami's defensive coordinator search. Actually, before we talk about that, I want to read this because to be fair, when we talked on Tuesday, we did an episode right after Lance Guidry was fired. And, obviously there's a reason why Miami made the move that they did. Someone had to be accountable for all the points given up. I mean, 6 games with over 30 points given up, 3 games with over 40 points given up, a lack of adjustments throughout the year. Like, I thought Mario Cristobal did what he had to do, and hopefully Cristobal can find an upgrade. But I want to mention that covering Lance Guidry for the past couple of years, he's a good person, always nice and courteous with us, and I wish him the best of success. Like I don't wish ill will. You hate to talk about anyone losing their job, and I hope he lands on his feet and is able to bring his career trajectory that back up. So I received a message from a member of Lance Guidry's family, and he wanted me to read this, and I think this is fair to read. He says, I've watched Lance compete in all sports and coaching for 30 years. No one hates to lose more than him, and he will do and try anything and everything to win. He may not always get the results he's after, but it isn't because he hasn't given it his all. His entire life in sports, he has only been part of 2 losing teams. His first year at McNeese as a player, they had a losing record. They were conference champs 2 of the next 3 years with the number 1 ranked defense in FCS his senior year, and competed in the FCS playoffs for the first time and won their first title. The other losing season was at Miami of Ohio, where his first year they were 1-11. The next year they went 10-3, winning the conference in a bowl game, becoming the only team ever to go from double-digit losses to double-digit wins in 1 year. Florida State will try to be the second next year, by the way. He says at Western Kentucky, Lance went from a team that had lost 20-plus consecutive games to becoming bowl eligible for the first time ever. At Southeastern Louisiana, he went to a team that had a prior 100th ranked defense the year prior and was predicted to come out last in the conference and came up 1 yard short of winning the conference championship, but made the FCS playoffs and won their first game. At Marshall, his defense was ranked 8th in the FBS in yards allowed per game. The work he did at Marshall is what got him the Miami job. 6 in rushing yards allowed per game, and in the top 10 in 10 other defensive categories. Last year at Miami, Florida, he was nominated for the Broyles Award with his defense ranked nationally in several categories. For fans to say that he doesn't know what he's doing, they write to me, is asinine and uninformed as a statement. So, again, I wish Lance the best. And, he was a Broyles Award candidate last year. The defense was not good enough this year, but I hope he lands on his feet, and I really hope Miami finds the best possible replacement. So, reported shortly after the Guidry's job came open, it was reported that Miami is interested in Tyler Santucci of Georgia Tech. You remember that was the defense that gave Miami the most problems this year. Georgia Tech played a hell of a game against Georgia at the end of the season as well. Santucci had a really good year as coordinator, has a good track record. Supposedly Miami and Texas A&M have reached out to Santucci. Now, Texas A&M, Santucci has worked extensively with Mike Elko before, who's their head coach. So there's a connection there. So if it becomes a tug of war, Elko may be tough to beat there. We'll see how that plays out. But then someone who's reportedly open to a Miami move, according to On3 Sports, Tim Banks from Tennessee, their defensive coordinator, has had a lot of success there, is reportedly open to a move to Miami. On Kane Sport, they write, his defense this year was one of the nation's best. The Vols ended the season with a top 10 defense, allowing just 293 yards and 16 points per game. And that includes all the points they gave up against Ohio State. They still had those great averages. The team also had 12 interceptions, 9 fumble recoveries, 30 sacks in 13 games. Also of note that Banks' defenses led the SEC in tackles for loss per game at 7.62. That's a lot per game. And was third in turnovers gained per game at 1.44 in his first 3 seasons. Tennessee registered double-digit interceptions in all 4 of his years at Tennessee, representing the program's longest streak since that 5 consecutive seasons from 2012 to 2016. So Tim Banks could be an interesting one. Now, Clemson now has a vacancy at defensive coordinator, and reportedly Dabo is also interested in Tim Banks. So that could be a situation to watch. Could it become a Miami versus Clemson tug of war for Tim Banks? We will find out. Other names that have been mentioned to me in recent days or even recent weeks, Will Muschamp, who he's got the former head coaching experience, which we like. And I think Mario would like someone who's been a head coach before, because I keep hearing that Mario Cristobal wants his next defensive coordinator to really be the head coach of the defense, that he wants to give more autonomy and more responsibility to someone who has that sort of experience. So I wonder if Miami would reach out to Will Muschamp. He's currently an analyst at Georgia. Pat Fitzgerald, former head coach of Northwestern, is someone I've mentioned. Mel Tucker, former head coach at Michigan State, is someone we've brought up. Someone who doesn't have play calling experience, but has worked for some very good head coaches like Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. Travaris Robinson, T-Rob at Georgia. Of course, he's worked at Miami before. He's currently got a co-DC tag at Georgia. Maybe he would want to come home. He's an excellent recruiter, but the thing that he doesn't have is the defensive play calling experience. That would be my only reservation. Someone who's been mentioned to me, but I think he's got another gig lined up, is former Purdue head coach Ryan Walters. But everything I see is he's likely to be hired by Washington, because Washington, their defensive coordinator is Steven Belichick, he's about to go work for Pops at North Carolina. So that job is open, and I keep seeing Ryan Walters linked to the Washington job. And then another name that's been thrown out there, another guy with Miami ties, is Philadelphia Eagles defensive line coach Clint Hurt. So you wonder if he might come back home to Miami. But the ones that we have seen strongest reports of interest or mutual interest, Tim Banks at Tennessee and Tyler Santucci at Georgia Tech, who are both very accomplished defensive coordinators with solid recent track records. And yeah, I agree with Aaron. We need a DC who knows how to adapt 1,000%. And I think we need someone soon, because we're trying to land important players in the transfer portal. You got to be able to sell that vision. I think we need a quarterback, or at least we need to settle the quarterback situation soon. Because obviously I'm not completely ruling out who's on the team. I'm just saying, if for as much as I really like Emory Williams, that was not a good showing whatsoever in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Luke Nickel is a true freshman who I think is a bright future, but starting as a true freshman is difficult. Judd Anderson, could he beat out those two guys for the job? But I still think Miami could look at a transfer quarterback. If you're recruiting wide receivers, they want to know who's throwing them the football. You're recruiting defensive players, they want to know who their coordinator is going to be. Chris Gahn says, what about Robert Saleh? I mean, if he's interested in coaching back in college, yeah, I definitely give him a look. I haven't seen him actually linked. I've only seen him speculated. All right, my friends, thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Enjoy the rest of your day. If there's any breaking news or anything like that, we will be back. Although we're going to Santa's Enchanted Forest later on today. So I will not be available after 5 p.m. But if anything happens before 5 p.m., we got you covered. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. And we will talk to you guys next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.